So, guys, today and few upcoming sessions, few means minimum 10 to 12 sessions, we are going to discuss ASP.NET Core Identity. ASP.NET Core Identity means from the scratch only. So, everything we are going to do manually, and also I'm going to implement all the identity related functionality with example. Practically, I'm going to show everything. So in today's session, first of all, we will discuss what is ASP.NET Core Identity, the architecture of ASP.NET Core Identity, how you can do the setup identity setup in ASP.NET Core. What are the basic or what are the default tables provided by ASP.NET Core Identity? What is the use of each table? And how you can customize the table by adding few columns into the identity database? How you can create your own database table? So all these things we are going to discuss in today's session. So first of all, what is ASP.NET Core Identity? Can anybody tell me before proceeding further what you guys understood meaning? I mean, what you thinking about identity? Anyone having any idea?
Yeah, like a .NET Core, like it is cross-platform, right? It can run on various Windows, Mac, Linux.
Not
But
saying,
whereas
I'm not talking about right ASP.NET Core, or you can say that is cross-platform open source. No. So my question is, what do you mean by identity? What is the use of ASP.NET Core Identity? What exactly it gives us? What are the features and functionality we are going to achieve using ASP.NET Core Identity?
Might be it's providing high level of logging features.
Yes.
security system.
It checks
Yes.
whether the user, authorized user and or authenticated user, and
Yes.
yeah, correct.
it provides
Yeah,
the roles like
It's a
admin or user
Yeah.
regular.
Exactly. Right?
it's a one of the framework which
Yes.
allow us to manage the user authentication authorization.
Yes. See, in
Yeah,
simple words, right?
yeah,
In simple,
identity, like just one, I would like to highlight one thing, like identity in the sense like we will be using JWT token, right? Like unique token we will be generating every time. So like that I'm thinking, but not sure.
no, no, no. So that JWT is not identity. That is completely your authentication and authorization. I mean, token-based authentication. See, there are a different kind of authentication, and JWT is one such authentication. That is token-based authentication. Apart from JWT, you can go with session-based authentication, cookies-based authentication, so basic authentication. Different functionality and features are there. And JWT is not identity. First of all, I need to make you clear that JWT is not equivalent to identity. JWT is completely different concept altogether. Identity is going to be completely different concept altogether. Clear? So what exactly identity means? Identity means, right? You have to remember, identity means.
Hey Pranav, Pradeep here. I think your voice is not clear for me. Is it
Guys,
for
my
you?
voice is not clear.
Yes, sir,
Yes.
your voice is
Yes,
going down
sir,
in
some
between.
glitches are there.
Yeah, I cannot also hear clearly.
Yeah.
So now it is better or same issue?
No, it's the same.
Yeah,
So
it's better only. For me, it's better only, but not sure like others.
In between, it's going down, sir.
Yeah,
let
for
me
me,
change
same.
my network. Okay. Now, guys, it's better. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes,
Yes,
it's
yes.
better.
Yes, Pranav, much better.
Good now.
So basically, in simple word, we can say ASP.NET Core Identity or identity, whatever, right? If you are using the term ASP.NET Core Identity, that's fine. So it is the membership management system. Membership management system, right? So what do you mean by membership management system? Now, basically, membership management system means what? Now, whatever all functionalities, all features, all the required database tables is required to manage the user of an application. that framework, that system is going to be provided by this identity framework. See, if you are going to implement any robust user management system, so basically, what are the tables you need? You need one user table, you need one roles table, you need one user roles mapping table, right? You need one claims table, you need one, right? What I can say, user claims table, you need another one. What is that? User roles table, right? Sorry, role claims table. You need one external authentication, external user table. So these are the different tables you generally need. So what is the use of a user table? Now, all the user related information we are going to store, like the first name, last name, ID, email, phone number, is active, is two-factor authentication, is right enabled, is lockout, is right phone number verified, is mobile number verified. All these things are going to be managed in the user table. And what is the use of roles table? So whatever all the real roles are available within the application, admin role, user role, guest role, moderator role. So whatever all roles are available within the system, for that purpose you need to create a system. So what is the user roles mapping table? So basically, one user, right? One user can be assigned with multiple role, and at the same time, one role can be assigned to multiple users.
Pranay, again,
Yes.
your voice is somehow glitches.
Yes, again, guys, my voice is breaking.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, your voice is lacking so much. We can't hear you clearly.
I don't know why it is happening. Right here. Now it is better or not? Still the same issue.
Now it's better. It's like when you pretend it's like.
Even I don't know why it is. I don't know why it is happening. But right, and coming to network, what I can do, right? I tried with my mobile network and I tried with my Wi-Fi, and if nothing is working, then right
Now it's
now,
okay.
right? What is the solution? You guys just right. What I can do is okay. So fine. So now let us try to understand this thing, right? So user table is there, roles table there. User roles mapping table means if you want to implement the many-to-many relationship between two tables, then you need to introduce the joining table. So this is going to be the joining table between user and role. So whatever all the claims available within the system, claims are nothing but some additional information about the user. So that's what if you want to store, then you can make use of claims table. And these claims can be assigned to user, individual user. What are the claims you can store here? Instead of assigning to user, so what you can do is you can assign these claims to roles, and that role claims table is going to be there, where one role can be have multiple claims, and then this role will be assigned to user. Ultimately, the user is going to have such claims. External user table means, right, instead of you saying external user, what I can say external authentication table. So whenever you are going to implement with right, Google authentication, Facebook authentication, Microsoft authentication, so external authentication, then in that case, those authentication details you need to store inside this table. Clear? So this is what you need to do or not. This is the general things that what you need to implement whenever you are going to develop any robust management system. Am I right?
Yes.
Exactly, right? And then what is the second thing? See, this is the table that what you need to develop. Then what you need to do, you need to develop the services. So what is the use of services? Services is going to implement a few things. What are the things? All the validation. So how to manage the data in the users table, roles table, how to manage the mapping, and all these things. Or whether the data, whatever I'm getting, whether the email ID is unique, password is a strong password. So this first name, last name field are required field. So all the validation we need to implement here. Then we need to implement all the business logic. So as per the application logic, whatever all business logic is required. For example, the user forgot the password. So we need to generate the forgot password link, and that link we need to send into the data, right? I mean, send to the customer's email ID, and then we need to also provide that verification functionality. So again, change password is going to be there. Again, we need to check whether the username and password is correct or not. Whatever the email ID provided, is this email ID is already taken by someone else or not. So all the validation, all the business logic, all the data access logic, right? For this purpose, what we need to do, we need to create some kind of a user services. Clear? Yes or no?
Yes.
So you need to create the entities, or if you are going with a entity framework or code first approach, you need to create entities. You need to manage those entities using the DB context, and then that tables are going to be created. And then you need to create some kind of a services repositories where you need to implement the business logic, data access logic, validation logic, and then these user services are going to contain all these things. And from your controller action method, you need to consume the services to do the required operations. Now, what exactly identity system is going to do is, as a developer, why should I do all these things? Why should I do all these things? Why should I create the required database table? Why should I write the validation logic, business logic, and the data access logic? It should be right. It is going to be done by the identity. For example, let me take you the simple scenario. Why you are developing RESTful services? Guys, tell me why you are developing RESTful services. RESTful services are going to be consumed by the client
Yeah.
application. That
Yes.
client application might be a web application. That my client application might be Android, might be iOS, some desktop application also. They are going to consume your services. Some other services, they can be consume your services. What exactly your services contains? Your services going to contain all these things or not? It is going to contain the data validation logic, business logic, data access logic, all the right database table interaction using either ADO.NET Core, either using Entity Framework Core. All these things are going to be consumed by your services or not? Now, the
Yes.
user of your services, that is the mobile application, the web application, the Android application, are they going to bother about how you implement the validation logic, business logic, or data access logic, or they simply needs to know what is the method name, I mean API name, what is the input parameter, and what the method is going to return. So they are going to bother about the input and the method signature, what data I need to provide, what data I need to expect as a return, or they are also going to bother how you have written the C# code, what are the different layer you have implemented, how you are creating the repository. Are they going to bother about all these things?
No.
No.
So similarly,
No.
whenever I'm using ASP.NET Core identity, if you are going to use ASP.NET Core identity, so it is nothing but it is going to provide some kind of a services. So the way we are consuming RESTful services, that is going to be consumed by the external world, external clients. Similarly, this ASP.NET Core identity provide me some services, and those services we need to consume within our application. And what exactly those services contains? Those services know what are the different entities to be defined. Those services already defined, the DB context class, how to communicate with the database. Those services already defined, some validation, service method, and those method already written the required logic like validation logic, business logic, data access logic, and all these things. Now, from our application, if I need to create one user, then what I need to do? I need to call one of such method passing the user entity. And validating the user entity, storing that user entity into the database, maintaining the integrity of the entity. All these things are going to be handled by ASP.NET Core Identity. Similarly, if you want to implement the sign-in functionality, you want to validate whether the provided username and password is correct or not. So I'm not going to bother about it. I just need to use the identity framework. I need to call the method. That method is going to do all the validations. Now I need to generate one token that for the password reset, for the two-factor authentication, right? For example, I want to generate one password reset token. Once the user click on that link, it will be redirected to our application. So generating that token, validating whether that token is still valid or it is being used, I'm not going to bother. That is going to be also managed by the membership management system. One external authentication login. So that external authentication, how it is going to be logged in, where to store the data, is not my responsibility. That identity system is going to manage. So everything, whatever the features, whatever the functionality required by a .NET Core application, right, related to user membership management. Not only user membership management, you can see it is also storing these roles, user roles table claims. Means what? It can also implement a role based access control, claim based access control. So basically, not only authentication authorization, but also it is going to implement role based authentication. It is also going to provide support for claim based authentication. It is going to provide support for two-factor authentication, account lockout. All these things are going to be provided by ASP.NET Core Identity. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Right. So if you look at this identity framework, it is going to provide the support for authentication, authorization, user and role management. So user and role management, claim management, all these things are going to be provided support. It also provides support for external login using Google account, Twitter account, Facebook account. You can do login. It also provides the feature, right? Security features like uh, whenever you are storing the password, automatically you will convert that password into hash format. If you are trying with the multiple failed attempt, if you are providing the correct username or email ID, but wrong password for 4 times or 5 times, then that account is going to be locked for some minutes. Again, it is provide support for two-factor authentication. But if you are going to enable two-factor authentication, you need to enable either right mobile, your phone number should be confirmed, your email ID is going to be confirmed. So all these things are going to be managed, going to be provided by ASP.NET Core Identity Framework. Clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, what are the key features? We have already discussed that user management system. So it provides the key features means you can say some of the service methods. Service C, whenever I'm saying services or whenever I'm saying API, so you have to remember some method, some function. So they are providing some method or function for user management. User management means what? You can create, update, delete, retrieve user information from the database. You can also customize the table. So whatever the default table, we are also going to discuss that customization. So whatever the default table structure they provided, they are making this framework so flexible that you can customize the existing table names. You can add few columns to the table, but you cannot delete columns, right? Whatever the columns they are provided by default, you can extend, but you cannot remove, right? Role management, how to create role, how to active, deactivate, delete, all these things are going to be provided. Password management means right, it is going to store a strong password, minimum 8 character, special character, alphabet, digit, the combination of all these things. Every right, I mean, whatever things is required for a strong password, they are providing. Secondly, whatever the password you are going to enter, that is going to be stored in the hash format. Only hash generation is there, but you cannot reverse. Reverse means from the hashed password, you cannot generate the original password. You can only take the original password or whatever the password, you can convert that into some hash. That is what. Again, they are providing some mechanism to reset the password, to change the password. So reset and change means what? Right. For example, once you logged in, then you can change the password or reset the password. For that case, you need to take the existing or old password. But in case of a forgot password, that flow is going to be different. In that case, you need to ask the user to enter his email ID. Once he entered, you can send a link to that user account, I mean to that email ID, and clicking on that email, it will take to the red password change page where he can enter a new password and confirm the password. So that is also going to be provided. 100% user authentication and authorization. Authentication means to verify who the user is. Authorization means what the user can do within the application. Again, that authorization you can implement based on the role, based on the claim. So claim-based authentication, role-based authentication, all these things we are going to discuss. Then we can see external login provider. So they're providing support to integrate external authentication. So for example, you need to integrate Google, you need to integrate Facebook, you need to integrate Microsoft, you need to integrate Twitter, or which is also called as X. So all these functionalities are going to be supported by ASP.NET Core Identity. And customizability, yes, whatever the existing table structure they have provided, you can customize. So what are the things you can do with this customization? Now within the identity database, you can create a new table. You can change the table name. You can change the primary key column type. What primary column type means? By default, the primary column is going to be string type. I don't want string. I want the integer as the primary key column. Is that possible? Yes, that is possible. No, I don't want string. I don't want integer. I want to make a unique throughout my server. And for that purpose, I need to use QID. Is that possible? Yes, that is also possible. So you can, they're providing that support to make the customizable. So whatever the custom table I'm creating, can I make relationship with the existing database table? Yes, that is also possible. For example, they're providing one table called a user. And most of the application, real-time application, we are also going to create a separate table for storing the user address. Then if I'm creating a custom address table, then can I link that address table with the user table with one-to-one relationship or one-to-many relationship? Is that possible? Yes, that is also possible. And all these things we are going to discuss throughout our applications. Clear?
Okay.
Is that clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. Now, what are the things you need to remember, guys? Remember, whenever I'm using Entity Framework Core, and the good thing is that ASP.NET Core Identity internally, ASP.NET Core Identity internally using Entity Framework Core code first approach. So, in the case of a code first approach, right? For example, forget about Entity Framework Core and identity. So if you are going to develop any RESTful services, and if you want to provide some external wall to consume your services, for example, my controller is there, and I want to manage the data access logic, business logic using Entity Framework Core with the SQL Server database. Then what are the things I need to do? First of all, you need to create your data model, or you can say entities, or you can say models. Why? Because based on these models only, I can define the relationship between the entities or between the tables, and based on this model, the database table is going to be created. So what one of the important thing what you need, so whenever you are developing, so what are the things you need to define? So or you can say core identity component. So ASP.NET core identity component. So what are the important components? So let us try to observe. First of all, if I'm going to see internally, it uses internally it uses what? It uses EF core code first approach, right? It internally uses Entity Framework Core code first approach. The database can be anything. You can make use of SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB, whatever database you take into consideration, no issue. But internally, it is going to make use of an Entity Framework Core code first approach. So whenever you are using Entity Framework Core code first approach, so what are the three things you need to know? First of all, you should have some entity or entities. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes.
Guys, am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes. Yes.
Entities. What is the second thing? Without, if I'm creating the entities, then we need to provide the interface or the bridge which will do the database operation with the database. And what is that a component in our application? Where we need to define all the, what should be the table name,
Context, DB
DB
context.
context.
the second
Database
component is
context.
the DB context object. So this without this. Then what is the third thing? If you are developing, then you need to provide some kind of a services or a
Services. Repository.
right? If you are going with the repository pattern, yes, that is fine. Then from the service, you need to call the repositories. Okay, let's assume we don't have that repository. So I'm going to create some services. Within the services, what I need to do, I need to inject the DB context, and using the DB context and using the entities, I can perform the database operation. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And within the DB set, DB context, what we need to define? We need to define the DB set of a T entity properties. Clear?
Yes, sir.
What is T entity is nothing but your entity class name. So for example, customer, employee, product, payment, whatever. So this is going to be your T entity. So these three things you at least need, right? Whenever you are going to perform the operation using entity framework or code first approach. Am I right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Now, so in this case, right, as I'm using ASP.NET Core Identity, Do I need to create these entities, DB context and services?
No.
If I'm going to use, then why should I use identity? I can use my own framework, right? If I'm going to use ASP.NET Core identity, why should I use this thing? So what exactly it means? It means ASP.NET Core identity internally implement all these things. Whatever the entities, whatever the DB context, whatever the services, they implement internally all these things. Now, what we need to do? Whatever the services they provided, using those services, whatever the functionality is required, that corresponding service method I need to consume only. Clear?
Yes.
Right? Then whatever all DB context they have, right? So in this case, so three things we need to understand: what entities they have provided, what DB context they have provided, and what services classes they have provided. So these three things we need to understand. Clear? So in this case, right, what entities they have provided means you can see these are the entities: identity user, identity role, identity user role, identity user login, identity user claim, identity role claim, identity user token. So identity user role model, what is exactly it means? This is going to contain, right? Identity user model means it is going to contain which table in the database?
Users.
Users table. So what information it is going to store? It is going to store the user related data, user ID, username, email, password, right? Password, confirm, not confirm password, password, phone number, all these things are going to be stored inside that table. So this entity is clear what exactly this user entity going to contain, or a identity user model is going to contain.
Yes.
Identity role means this is going to be similar to your roles table. So whatever information we are storing, the different kind of roles, what is the description, so that is what going to be managed by this roles identity role model. So basically for this identity user model, one table is going to be created where where it will store the user related data. Identity role is another entity where it is going to store, where it is going to create the roles table where the right application roles are going to be stored. Identity user role means this is the mapping table, right? This is similar to your user roles mapping table. So whatever the right, so don't put any message. Let me write set this one because I never check the message. Uh, right. So anyone having any question, they can on comment, right, unmute and ask me directly. So this is identity user role table means this is going to be the mapping table. One user can have multiple role and one role can be assigned to multiple user. So that mapping is going to be many to many. So for that purpose, it is going to use this entity. Identity user login means this is for the external authentication. So whenever you implement some external authentication, whatever the external authentication provider you use, what is the unique ID provided by the external authentication user? And if any local user is there, that user ID, you need to store inside this table. Identity user claim. So we have already discussed claims are nothing but additional information about the user. For example, date of birth is one. See, every information, whatever you store related to a user is nothing but a claim. For example, username is one claim, role is one claim, mobile number is one claim, password is one claim, right? Each edit, can the user perform the right access level, one claim, right? Everything, whatever you think about a user, is nothing but a claim. So that claims we can store here. And this claim, right, and this user, one user can have multiple claim. So that one to many relationship, right, we can manage here. Not one to many, you can say many to many. One user can be assigned with a multiple claim and one claim can be assigned to multiple user. Again, this is going to be identity, right, role claim. So this is identity user claim and this is identity role claim. So identity user right user claim means claim is assigned to user that many to many relationship. Identity role claim means it is going to have a many to many relationship with the role. For example, you can assign the claim to user, you can assign the claim to role. And definitely, whenever you assign the claim to role, that role will be assigned to one user. Ultimately, whatever claims you assign to the role, that is also available to the user. So these two tables are there for managing the claims between the user claim and the role claim. And identity user token model. So this is going to create my tokens table, and you can see, right, user claims role. So tokens table is going to be there, right, in the identity database. So this is basically going to contain for right, the external tokens. For example, you generate one reset token, you generate one two-factor authentication token. So those informations are going to be stored inside this token table. So this is for some short time, short period of time, it is going to store the data. And this is the
One doubt. See,
yes.
you mentioned like in identity claims, with the respect of this user, identity user, right? So it should be a many to many, right? You told.
Yes, yes.
But see, if user have a same like a single email ID, right, which is stored under this claim model, then how it is related? One email is associated with the particular user, right?
Hey, see, you have to remember. So claim means what? So claim is a different. So what, that email is a claim. That value is going to be different one, right? Yeah, you have to remember. And that same email claim I can assign with a different user. For each user, the value is going to be different. Again, right? That what you can manage using one-to-one or one-to-many. In this case, right? A claim means what? Email one claim. So is that email claim can only be available to a single user? Right? So for that particular user ID, see what are the things I need to create, right? Not only the user ID, I need to create what is the claim type and the claim value. So that claim type, what I created, that is going to be my email, and the value can be anything, whatever the value. And that the email claim, I can assign to one user or it can be assigned to multiple users.
Okay, so email will be the property, right? And the value will be differ, right? Can be
Value,
anything.
whatever
Okay.
value you want, you can store.
Yeah. Okay, okay. Yeah, got it.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is my, and guys, these are the data models, or you can say entities, for which it is going to create a database table. So as we have 7 entities, you can see in the ASP.NET Core identity data model. So 7 database table is going to be created. And guys, remember, see, whenever I'm using this identity database, so whenever I'm using DP context, so this DP context means my one DP context, which is inherited from the DP context. And in my right, custom DB context, I need to define the DB set properties. But already, this whatever all DB set properties, right, they have already provided within this identity DB context class. So basically, in your case, in our case, the context class, what we are going to create it, that class is not going to be inherited from the DB context class. Rather than it is going to be inherited from the identity DB context class. Why not from this DB context class? And why from this DB context class? Because this DB context class knows how to register all these entities. This DB context know what should be the DB set properties. This DB context know what is the relationship between these tables. This DB context know what indexes to be created on which column. This DB context know when to create, right, what I can say, a primary key column, when to create a composite primary key column, where to create the foreign key. All these configurations are already done within this DB context class. Now, whenever we are going to create the context object, that context object should and must be inherited from this identity DB context class. Clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So this is what I have done. But using this DP context class, using this identity model means only the data is ready, context object is ready. But for performing the operations, we need some services or not. If your DP context is there, then using this DP context dot add DP context dot employees dot where whatever the query you write, whatever insert operation, update operation, delete operation, retrieve operation, whatever the validation, right? Whatever you are going to do. For that purpose, you have to use the DP context, but again, you have to write those logic in some set of a method. And for that purpose, this identity service provided with us 3 service classes. What are the classes? User manager service, role manager service, sign in manager service. Clear? So 3 service. So in our application, whenever we are going to deal with, we are not going to deal with these entities or this identity DB context. We are going to deal with these service classes. And these service classes, they provided us with a lot of service method. And as per our requirement, based on our requirement, we need to consume those methods. And those methods internally, they have written this DB context, all the logic, how to access the data, how to send the data, everything that is going to be written within those service method, service classes. Clear?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So three
yes.
service classes they have provided. Why? Because of the simplicity. So why simplicity? Now this core, I see there are two ways to use identity. One is a identity, right, core identity, and one is identity, another one is identity core. So basically, if you are developing the web application like ASP.NET Core MVC, in MVC application, you can make use of authentication and login functionality using cookie based. But cookies based or session based. Is cookies and sessions are available in ASP.NET Core Web API?
No.
No.
No. Then in that case, the sign-in manager service, what is provided to us, is specifically for managing the authentication part, right? Logging the user, log out the user, setting the user information in the cookies. So for that purpose, we are going to use sign-in manager. So basically, if you are working with the JW, I mean, if you are working with the Web API, you don't need this one. In Web API, only this user manager service, role manager service is more than enough. But whenever you want, if you want a complete, if you want a complete feature is the identity, specifically for ASP.NET Core MVC, or you can say Blazor-based applications, then you can you can use all these things. So basically, you can see user manager service is basically going to manage all the user related operations. I mean, creating the user, modifying the user, assigning user with role, deleting the user, retrieving the user information, all the operations related to user, including the password reset, change password, forget password. All these things are going to be managed by this user service. This role manager basically going to deal with the role management, creating the role, retrieving the role, updating the role, deleting the role. So that is sign-in manager is basically going to deal with the sign-in functionality, like logging the user, log out the user, implementing the two-factor multi-factor authentication, implementing the external authentication. All these things are going to be managed by this sign-in manager class. So they have provided three different kind of services. As per your requirement, you can use this service method and start consuming the identity related core features. And internally, this data model, this DB context, all these things are going to be handled by ASP.NET Core identity. Clear?
Yes,
Pranay, I
yes.
have one doubt. Can you please say come again? Why don't we use the sign-in manager services when we are developing the web API applications?
So you just tell me in the sign-in manager, right? What functionality they are going to provide? The sign-in functionality. Sign-in functionality means once the user is logged in, that logged in information they are going to store in the sessions and the cookies. And once the logout functionality is going to be there, they are going to clear those session and cookies information, right? So in Web API application, do you have the concept of a session and cookies?
No.
No. Then why they will provide the sign-in manager service class,
Okay.
right? So I will
So,
show you
so
what is the
Pranay,
difference. Yes.
so Pranay, in user manager service, we will not sign in or log in the user or log out.
No, no. See, for example, if I develop two service method, one is payment service, one is order service. In the payment service, I have written all the payment related method. In the order service, I have written all the order related method. Then using the payment service, can I call the order related method? Right? But again, so if you written all the method, payment method, order method, everything, if you are putting inside a single service class, does it follow the single responsibility principle?
No.
No. So basically, this is a proven trusted framework, right? The proven trusted framework means it follows the industry coding best practices. It follows the solid design, solid principles. And what is the best way to implement the functionality by taking security, by taking performance into consideration? They have provided the implementations. That is the reason why they have provided three different classes and right, and they have provided a different way to register the identity service into your application. If you don't need this one, then why should you write I mean, include this one into your rate request processing, or you can say into the dependency injection container. I don't need to inject this one. I don't need to register this one at all. Clear? How to do this thing? Practically, I'm going to show you. Clear?
Yeah.
I have one doubt. Like you said, like in normal REST APIs, we don't have that cookies related functionalities. But what exactly internally sign-in manager is using as cookies?
Yeah,
In,
see, it is signing the data into the cookies. See, do you know how the cookies and the sessions are working internally?
yeah.
So how it is working? Tell me.
So I mean, whenever we are logging in, uh, 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 to send the data to next page,
No, no, I'm not talking about login. So I'm talking what exactly happening in case of right cookies. Who you will set the data, where the data is going to be stored, what header
browser.
is going to be used by the server, what header is going to be used by the browser to send the data, where the data is going to be stored in the browser. That is what you have any idea?
Yeah, so the cookies will be stored in the browser's
Yes,
memory. I mean, we can see it via the advanced tools,
yes, yes. That
and it will
server
be
is
in.
going to set this information, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the browser is going to send those cookies information in every subsequent request, right?
request. Yes, that's correct.
Right. But whenever you are developing in RESTful services, are you sure? Are you going to give guarantee that those services are only going to be used by browser? They cannot be consumed by some other services. They cannot be consumed by console application. They cannot be consumed by desktop application. Can you give it that guarantee?
No, not at all.
Then in that case, if your application is going to be consumed by some desktop application, some console application, then that browser concept, that cookies concept is available or not?
No, not available.
That is the reason why, right? Whenever you are working with RESTful services, there is no session and no cookies concept. So in RESTful, there is one protocol, there is one principle, there is one rule. That is what you need to follow. That is RESTful services. RESTful means server is not going to store any information related to the right the client in the right server. So every time whenever you send a request, you need to provide all the necessary information. And mostly whenever you are working with RESTful services, to manage the user interaction, you need to use some kind of a authentication mechanism like JWT token, like basic authentication, JWT authentication. That is what we are using instead of a session and a cookies. Clear?
Yeah.
Anyone else having any question, guys? Okay. So now let us try to understand how we can set up this, right? I have provided this thing, right? All the things I have provided, including, right, all the documentation. I'll share this document so you'll go through and you will get this concept. Now what next I'm going to discuss? I'm going to discuss the identity set. So let us proceed and understand this step by step. So first of all, what I'm going to do, see guys, remember there are two options. Two option means you can learn identity with ASP.NET Core Web API, but with ASP.NET Core Web API, you will not find all the key functionalities. Some of the functionality, that is the sign-in part, that is missing. So two-factor authentication, I mean that what you can implement manually, but using the external authentication, that cookies-based authentication, these things are missing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all the functionalities, sign-in manager, role manager, along with the user manager using ASP.NET Core MVC application. And why I'm using ASP.NET Core MVC, another major reason is I can show you both the front end and the back end. So how it is behaving in the front end, how it is behaving in the back end. Both I'm going to explain. Why? Now, for example, if I want to explain how to implement external authentication. So without the client application, I cannot implement this one. If I want to show you how the forgot password is working, so without the client application, I cannot implement this one. If I want to expose, right, how to implement what I can say, some advanced feature, multiple forgot right, failed attempt. So for that purpose, you need the client application. Without the client application, 100% clarity will not become. So that is the reason why I'm going to develop I'm going to develop one complete ASP.NET Core MVC application going to show you all the identity related concept and how to use in ASP.NET Core Web API we have already discussed. So now let us proceed and try to understand this thing right one by one. Let me first create one MVC project.
No, sir, I have one question.
Yes, please.
If we are not implementing this identity, then can we implement JWT without this identity framework?
Right. Yes, identity. So what I'm saying, identity is different and the JWT is different. So why you are thinking identity and the JWT are same?
I mean, how would I make sure that this? I mean,
See,
what are the criteria
100%. See,
which I will
100%. See,
identify that I have?
the identity with the JWT 100% it will work. Right? Those who have attended my morning session, anyone here who are attending my microservices sessions?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
So in that microservices session, in the user microservice, what technology and concept we have used? Are you using ASP.NET Core Identity plus JWT?
Yes.
That is what is possible. In Web API, you have to use identity plus JWT. Identity for the membership management system. JWT is behave like a cookies and session which will carry the user authentication information between multiple requests. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, let me go ahead and create a new MVC project. So, ASP.NET Core Model View Project template, whatever the name you want, you can give. So, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create the project within this ASP.NET Core Identity folder and then click on the next button and click on the create button. So, guys, I will develop one application and at the end, I will share the source code. But on daily basis, whatever explanation, whatever coding we are going to do, you have to practice this thing on your own machine. So now we have what we have done, we have created the project. So now we need to understand few things. So if you want to use identity, then what are the packages that what you need to install? So basically, you need to install three packages. What are the packages? So forget about this package. Can anybody tell me what is the use of this package? What is this package? Microsoft.entity framework code.sql server.
If
It's
you
the
wanted
data
to
provider.
SQL
interact with
connection.
SQL Server database, then that package
It
is
is the data provided for SQL Server, data provider for SQL Server. What is this package? This package is going to give you support for database migration. So, which will help us to create the migration file and update with the database. And for using ASP.NET Core Identity, so what you need to do, you need to install this package. This package will provide the support for implementing ASP.NET Core Identity using Entity Framework Core in your .NET Core application. So basically, you have to remember if you are using identity means you have to use Entity Framework Core. There is no database first approach. There is no other approach. You have to use Entity Framework Core, and that is going to be code first approach only, right? So why code first approach? Because he is going to create the database, and that is the reason why as it is going to create the database, then it is definitely going to use the code first approach. So this is the package which is basically going to provide the support for identity. This is the package which is going to provide the support for data SQL Server database. This package is going to provide the support for database migration. So these three packages we need to install. See, these two packages related to Entity Framework Core, you can install the latest version. Right, currently, for example, I'm developing the application using .NET 8, and the latest one is .NET 9. That is fine. That is Entity Framework Core. 9 is compatible with .NET 8, but this package, right, is not compatible. So what I need to do, we need to install this package, right, which is compatible with our framework. So how to install this one? So go to Package Manager, Solution, go to the Browse tab, select the package which you want to install. So in this case, it is the package which is compatible. What is the package? .NET 8, 8.0.18. So I generally not prefer to use the STS version. I generally prefer to use the stable and the latest version, LTS, long-term support. I don't go with the short-term support, STS. So in this case, .NET 9 is the STS. .NET 8 is the LTS. So LTS means I'm selecting the latest version of LTS, that is 8.0.18, and click on the install button. So once I click, so it will ask you to accept the license agreement. This will install the package. That is fine. So next, what package I need to install? I need to install my other EFA core related packages, which is required for Entity Framework Core. So let me go ahead and install this package. So this is going to be my first package. The next package.
It's entity identity core with entity framework. So does it work only with entity framework, or will it work with the Dapper or edu.net?
No. It is only going to work with Entity Framework Core.
Okay, so identity will only work with entity framework.
Yes. Entity Framework Core code first approach. Clear?
Okay. Yes.
Right. So once the right things are installed, what is the next step? Next step, we need to generate our DbContext class. Our DbContext class is going to be inherited from the identity DbContext or a DbContext.
Identity context.
That is what we have already discussed. So let me go ahead and create a folder at the project root directory. What should be the folder name? Let's give the folder name as data. And within this data folder, let me create my DbContext class that is going to be application DbContext. So let me go ahead. So this is going to my application DbContext class. And inside this class, I'm not going to do anything special. What I need to do, I just need to inherit the DbContext class. So my application DbContext class is inherited from the identity DbContext class. That's it. So generally, what we generally do, we generally inherit from the DbContext class. But instead of a DbContext class, what I need to do now, I need to inherit it from the identity DbContext class. And this identity DbContext class inherited from the DbContext class. And why we inherited from this identity DbContext class? Because this identity DbContext class provide the support for identity. Whatever the tables are going to be generated, what should be the table name, what should be the relationship, all these things are going to be provided by this identity DbContext. And now your class is inherited from the identity DbContext. So what exactly it means? It means using this application DbContext, I can access all the features which are defined in the identity DbContext also. Clear? Clear, guys?
Yes.
Right. Next, what I need to do, I need to configure my connection string. So in this case, you can define where the database is going to be created, identity or database. So what I'm giving the name, I'm giving the database name as identity database. So identity database. So this is going to be my database name, and that what I have provided. Next, what I need to do, I need to configure these things. So basically, what are the things you need to configure? First of all, you need to register Entity Framework Core with SQL Server. Second, you need to register the identity services. Third, you need to register the authentication and authorization middleware component to the request processing pipeline. Why you need to register this Entity Framework Core? Because without this thing, the framework will not able to identify, right, which where is the database, what is the connection string. So first of all, what I need to do, I need to register my DbContext class. Clear? So my DbContext class is registered to use SQL Server database, and the connection string, it is going to read from the appsettings.json file. Clear? Registering the DbContext is first. Clear? This is clear?
Yes.
So now what is the second thing? Second is register identity services. So second is registering the identity services. So identity services means what? Now, if I'm going to use identity, then that identity is going to provide some configuration services, that is the sign in service, sign in manager service, user manager service, user and role manager service, and those services we can use directly within the controller by injecting them. Then what exactly it means? It means we need to register these services into the application processing pipeline, or you can not application processing pipeline. Service means they are going to be registered into the dependency injection container. So in this case, what I'm doing here, I'm registering this thing. So what I'm saying, now I'm saying I'm registering my identity, add identity. This is the service. That is what I'm registering. And to this identity, I need to specify two column, two table name, right? Which are the primary table. One is the user table, another one is the role table. So in this case, now you might have one question, sir. Already the framework know this identity user and identity role. This identity user is provided by ASP.NET Core identity. So here you can say identity user. And here this string is nothing but the primary key column data type. So by default, whatever the primary key column, right, you can say ID, that is going to be the right that data type is going to be string. So can we change this data type to something else? Yes, that is possible. How? We'll see. So now this identity table structure is already known to the framework. This identity role structure is already known to the framework. Then why again we are providing that information here? So can anybody tell me what type of a method is this? Is this a generic method?
No.
Why no? So what is this? So before the method, if you are specifying what type of rate entity is, then definitely it is going to be generic
It's
method or not,
generic.
right? So this is the syntax of a generic. So in this case, why they are making this method generic? Because so now you are using this identity built-in identity role identity user. That's fine. But what about tomorrow if you want to customize, if you want to create your own, right? For example, whatever the properties they define, you are not happy with those properties. You want to add some additional column. Then in that case, can I use this identity user? No, you cannot. If you use, then whatever the property defined inside this class, you can only use those properties. So they are making this add identity method generic because for extensibility. Extensibility means tomorrow if you want, you can extend this identity user. Extend this identity user means you can create a custom user class inheriting from this identity user class, and you can provide the additional properties within the custom class, and that custom class you can also pass from here. And you can also do the same thing within this identity role class. So as they are providing the flexibility, right, the customization, that is the reason why they are making this method, right, what I can say, generic.
Generic.
Secondly, this add
Mm.
entity framework store means it is going to make use of an entity framework core. And again, it is going to use this application DB context. And this application DB context, we have already registered to use SQL Server and connection string. All these things we have provided. And the same DB context it will use now. So it will use the DB context to do all the database related operations. So this is the second thing, right? Registering the DB context, registering the identity service. And what is the next thing? Next thing is you have to use app.authorization and app.authentication. So authorization, right? Not this is authorization. It should be use authentication. Clear? So first authentication, then authorization. Clear, guys? So this is required. Why this is required? This is required for authentication and authorization. Whether the user is valid or not, right? If you decorate the method with the authorized attribute, then these two things will come into the picture. If you are implementing some role-based authentication, then that role will be checked by this authorization. If the user is valid or not, that is going to be checked by this authentication middleware component. So these things you need to register. Clear or not?
Yes.
Clear or not?
Yes.
Okay, so this is what I have done. Next, what I need to do, I need to generate the migration file. So before generating the migration file, let me build the application and also check, is there any identity database here? So we are having this identity code. So we have provided the table name as a identity database. So this database is not available, so it's fine. So now go ahead and generate the migration file. So how to generate the migration file? So we have installed that tools package.
Hello.
Anyone saying anything? Yes.
Sorry, sir. Sorry for interrupting. Sir, in program.cs, you added those two user roles just before this. Yes, sir. So for claim-based, we don't need to add.
Yeah, what is the what do you mean by claim based? So what is
Sir,
claim based? How to register? So let me give you the clarity. So what is claim based? What is role based? All these things we are going to discuss. But we need to go step by step. Clear? So
okay, sir.
this is only for the basic functionality. And as we progress, right, let me give you. So all these things I'm going to discuss. So we are in the part two. So right after this, right, basics I'm going to discuss this external authentication. I'm going to discuss this advanced concept, right? All these things we are going to cover. And every, right, whatever the number of chapters I provided, each chapter I'm going to discuss, right, one by one. And here you will see that claim-based authentication, you will see that role-based authentication. One time, right, I will explain. So here you can see claim-based authorization, role-based authentication versus claim-based authentication. All these things we are going to discuss. At that time, I will show you how to do the same thing. Clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Yes.
Sir, I have
Right?
one doubt regarding that the idea application DB context. Sir, you have already defined registered the application DB context in the service which is inherited identity DB context. Then for that, why we use the second time application DB
See, so
context
what
inside
is
the
see, so what is this registration? This registration is telling to use DB context,
hmm. Okay.
application DB context. So is it possible that your application can have a multiple application, multiple DB context? Is that possible that you define one DB context for one database, another DB context for a different database? Is that possible or not?
Yes.
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 But whenever you are using identity, this identity is going to use application DB context 1 or application DB context 2. How the identity will come to know?
Okay.
So
Okay.
for that purpose, we need to specify what DB context is going to be used by the identity
Identity.
framework. Clear?
Okay, sir. Clear. Clear. Okay. Thank you.
Now we have now we need to generate the migration file. So go to the package manager console and execute this command add migration. So this should generate the migration file. So guys, first of all, I'm showing you the default table structure. Then I'm going to show you how you can customize the table structure. That is also very, very important.
Hello, sir. I just have a question.
Yes.
Sir, are we going to discuss the HTTP identities as well through the HTTP, like the server variables and all that stuff?
HTTP.
How can we get the identity from the HTTP from the server variables?
So what do you mean by server variables?
So that we can use like HTTP context to dot get the server variables, request dot server variables. Are we going
So
to use
my question is what do you mean by server variable?
so the headers and all that things?
Right, I don't know why you are thinking too much. See, if I'm explaining, so how to get those server information, we are definitely going to explain. So currently, whatever we are discussing, why not you keep focus on the current topic? Why you are thinking
Oh,
too
okay,
too far
okay,
ahead?
sounds good.
Right?
Thank you,
So,
sir.
right, otherwise what will happen? You will not keep concentration on the current topic. If you are thinking, right, about the upcoming topics. So, if, right, give some time, patience is important. And, right, till now, see, I have already completed most of the ASP.NET Core topics. I'm not going to skip anything. And whatever concept I'm going to explain, and I generally explain step by step so that you can easily understand. And then every concept starting from the basic to all the advanced concept I'm going to cover. So don't worry. So now if you look at the database, then your table should have been created. So go to your identity database. So this is my identity database. And inside this identity database, right, you can see it is created with the default naming convention. What is the default naming convention? ASP.NET role claims, ASP.NET roles, ASP.NET user claims, ASP.NET user login. So all these tables it is created using ASP.NET. So whatever the table name, before that it is appending ASP.NET. Right. So now let us try to understand all these tables one by one. Till now, anyone having any question?
Now it's clear.
Okay, now in the interview, you might get one question, sir, what is the difference between add identity and add identity core whenever registering the identity in ASP.NET Core? So basically, ASP.NET Core provides two right methods for registering the identity services into the dependency injection container. What are the method? One is add identity, another one is add identity core. So when to use, which one to use? See, if you want the complete and full featured ASP.NET Core identity system, means all the features related to user manager, role manager, sign-in manager, completely UI support, completely cookie-based authentication, right? Everything if you need that completely identity related functionalities, you have to use add identity, and the syntax is this one. And this is the syntax that what we have already, we are using. Then what is add identity core? That this is the minimal or lightweight version of the identity services. So this add identity core, it is going to keep only focus on two things. One is user and role management features. It is not going to support the sign-in manager functionality. It is not going to support the cookie authentication handler, and it is not going to give you support for the UI related services. For example, if you are using the add identity in a Blazor application, not only the backend services, the front-end user interface, they are also going to provide. But in API, so particularly in simple word, if you are going to use ASP.NET Core MVC application or ASP.NET Core Blazor application, you have to use add identity. If you are going to develop some backend services, particularly RESTful services using the framework like ASP.NET Core Web API, where the sign-in manager functionalities are not required, in that case, you need to use add identity core. In that case, for sign-in functionality, what you need to do, you need to use JWT tokens, OAuth, or you can use some other token-based functionality like basic authentication. So that is what you need to use. And the syntax to use this add identity core is this one. Clear? Right?
Yes.
For example,
Yes, sir.
so you are going with this option, then add identity core, and here this add role is not required. So some read functionality and some different logics. The syntax is going to be different one. So you have to use this one. Clear? What I can say is, so even I forgot the syntax.
No, there is a spelling mistake. Add identity.
Yes, yes. So this is going to add identity core. Clear? So here you can see it is only taking the add user. If you want to include add identity role, then you have to call this a add role method, right? How? Now in that case, you need to call this one add. What is add identity? What is that? The syntax, I generally not remember syntax. Add roles and you need to provide that identity roles. So add roles, and to this one, you need to provide your roles. What is the role? Identity role. Let me copy that here and give it here. Right? So this is how you need to use that identity core. Clear?
So Pranay, based on this identity user or identity role, it will create different tables in the database.
So we have already discussed all these things, and you are asking me what exactly it is going to do in the database. So are you attending the session from the beginning, or you just attend now?
Just now.
Just now, no?
Yeah.
So when we discussed this thing at that time, you were there? Yes or no?
I joined late.
Then you have to go through the recording, because right, we have already discussed this thing. What are the different entities, right? For example, we have already discussed this thing, right? What are the entities, for which entity what table is going to be created? See, these are the different entities: identity user, identity role, identity user login, identity user claim. So when I explain these entities, at that time you were there or not? You were here or not?
Yeah, I was there.
Then why I'm explaining the seven entities? Because it is going to generate seven tables: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Oh, got
So
it.
for each
Okay.
entity, it is going to create the corresponding table. So, and right, I'm not expecting this question. So you already know how the entity framework core is working. So you need to create entity. You need to register that entity as a DB set property within the DB context class. Then the framework is going to create the corresponding table for the right corresponding entity. Whatever the DB set property you specified, that is going to be the table name. So in this case, identity user. So it is created one table, ASP.NET user, ASP.NET user, ASP.NET user role. So all these things are created. Clear, guys?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Right? 7 tables it is going to create it. Now what I need to do next, we need to understand the table structure. So we have already discussed that identity framework is going to create these 7 tables, right? So let us proceed and understand the use of each table. See, guys, remember what I'm telling you. Whenever you are if you understand the database structure very clearly, your job is going to be 50% done. So once you understand the database, your work is 50% done. Let me check whether this identity DB having any data or not. So whatever the okay, so this is the example what I have developed in my previous session. Now, so that this will help you to understand the concept. So now let us try to observe. So in this case, that ID is going to be my primary key. So what I'm going to tell you guys, by default, the primary key column of all the entities are going to be same. So whatever 7 entities it generated, if you look at the primary key column, then 100% it is going to be in marker of a 450, which is the default size for string column, right? So if you are creating not for the string column, basically for the primary key column, whatever it is going to be used. So in that case, you can see ID, it is going to be my primary key. And you know what is the meaning of identity. ID means it is the unique identifier. So here you can see there are two forms, username and a normalized username, email and a normalized email. So basically, this username and normalized username, they are going to store the same value. Email and normalized name is going to also store the same value. But in the case of a normalized, it is going to store the data in the capital case, right? Capital letter. So why? Now because of the right, what I can say, case sensitiveness checking. So if you are passing some data, it will read whatever the data you provided, it will convert that data to upper, and then it is directly going to compare with this normalized username, normalized email, and it is going to reduce that comparison purpose. And what is the difference between a username and email? If you want, you can store a different username, whatever unique name you want to give, that is fine. And sometimes what happens, if you want, you can store username and email as same value, right? And if you look at this, this is my ID, unique identifier. Here you can see this is the data which is coming in, right? Whatever the data we provided for the username, and that capital version you can see here. And similarly, you can see the email, it is in lowercase, and the normalized email, it is going to be in uppercase. Clear? Clear or not?
Yes.
Clear.
Guys,
Yes.
clear?
Yes, sir.
So email
Yes,
confirm,
okay.
see, basically whenever you
It's
are
clear.
developing any application, whenever you are developing any kind of a web applications, two functionality we are nowadays they are implementing. One is, do this email, are you the user of this email ID? Are you the owner of the email ID? Or are you the owner of this phone number? So basically, once you provide the email and once you provide the phone number, in case of a phone number, they will send you OTP to your phone number. You have to verify that you are the owner of that phone number. Similarly, in case of a email address, they will send one OTP to the email. They will send an OTP to the mobile number, and you have to verify. And once you verify, then this email confirm field is going to be true. And similarly, for the phone number case, that phone number confirm field is going to be true. And in this case, password has whatever the password you provided, right? That hash version it is going to stored in the database. And this security stamp, it is basically used to invalidate the user token. So basically, what exactly it means? It means once you logged in from device one, that logged in information it is going to stored in the data rate cookies from a different device, right? Whenever you update your password, whether you change the password, whether you reset the password, then what it's going to do is it is going to update this security stamp. And once this security stamp is updated, then the old cookies and session token, they are going to be invalid. So basically, the security stamp is basically used to maintain the security of the update, sensitive information updation. So if you update the email, if you update the what I can say password, then in that case, this security stamp is going to be updated, and in that case, you have to re-log in. Clear?
Yeah.
This concurrent system, this is the timestamp attribute, which is basically used to manage the concurrency. If two transactions going to update the same data, then managing the concurrency is important so that one transaction should not override the changes made by the other transaction. So that concurrency is going to be. So every time you update the data, this concurrency column value is going to be updated, and that concurrency column is always going to be used whenever you are going to do some operations, right? If two operations read the data, they will see the same concurrent system. And once one operation update the data, this concurrency column value is going to be updated. Again, the second operation, when it is going to update, then at that time that concurrency is changed. So that second operation is going to be failed. That concurrency managing is going to be done by this concurrency stamp column. Clear? Clear or?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Right, this phone number field is very common, you know. Phone number confirm is also we have discussed. Two-factor authentication. For example, if your application required a second factor to authenticate the user, first factor is password. So they have to provide the user email and password. Once the password and email ID is correct, then the second factor will come into the picture. That is the OTP. So we need to send a OTP to the registered email ID or to the registered mobile number. And once that OTP is verified, then the user can access the system. But whether to enable, whether to provide that two-factor authentication or not for the provided user, this column will be used. So basically, user will decide whether he wants to enable two-factor authentication or not. If the user enable two-factor authentication, then that two-factor authentication will come into the picture. If the user disable, then this will not come into the picture. Again, if I'm going to enable two-factor authentication, then 100% that email ID and phone number must be confirmed. If the email and phone number is not confirmed, then you cannot enable the two-factor authentication. Why? Because if the email ID and phone number is not confirmed, then I'm not sure that means that the email and phone number is not belongs to that particular user. So he cannot enable two-factor authentication. To enable, he have to confirm. So this lockout to end and lockout enabled means what? So whenever the user registered, do you want to enable the lockout functionality? I mean, what exactly it means? It means if the user is going to provide some wrong password multiple times, do you want to block the or do you want to lock the user for some time period? Yes. If you provide this lockout enable to true, that means if the user, for example, let's say we set the failed count as 5. We set failed count as 5. Failed count means if the user provided wrong password for 5 times, then his account is going to be locked for some time. Then in that case, first of all, you need to make this column enable. This column enable means lockout functionality is enabled. In that case, if this access fail count is going to be increased each time you provided a wrong right password. So it's like this, it will be increased by 1, 2, 3, 4, and when it becomes 5, in that case, that the lockout is going to be ended. I means that lockout ended is going to be set after whatever the current time plus some time is going to be provided when the lockout is going to be end. And until and unless the current time is not great that lockout end time, the user cannot access the application. And anytime the user provided a correct password, then this access fail count is going to be reset to 0. So this lockout functionality, how it is going to be implemented practically, we are also going to discuss. Clear?
Yes.
Right? So this is our main entity. So rest of the entity are very simple. You can say ASP.NET role. So what is the ID, the unique identifier? What is the role name like admin, member, user, guest? So what is the normalized name? Means the capital version, capital version of the name. And concurrency stuff is basically going to maintain the concurrency. If two user or two admin, they are going to update the same role, one of the role is going to be completed, I mean operation is going to be success, other one is going to be failed because of this concurrency stamp column. So ASP.NET user roles table. So basically this is the mapping table. So one user can have multiple role and one role can be assigned to multiple users. So one-to-one mapping, that is we are going to store inside this table. So here you can send the user ID is multiple times, the role ID is also multiple times, but the combination is going to be unique. So in this case, you can see this is PK. So PK means what? As you know, primary key column can only exist once in a table. But in this case, that primary key can be a composite primary key. So composite primary key in the sense that combination of this column is going to be unique. So you suppose you provided user ID 1, role ID 1. So this user ID 1 can exist once within this table. You cannot make a duplicate entry 1 again within this table. And again, this user ID, you can see this is the foreign key, which is pointing to the user's table ID column. Role ID, it is also the foreign key pointing to the role table ID column. Clear?
Sir, why these username and password are nullable
Sorry?
in others? The usernames and password and all the columns are nullable. So,
Here, na, right?
right. Username, password,
Okay. You just
all
tell
are
me.
nullable.
So whenever you are developing this application, right? Suppose some application is there where you don't want to store the user password. Then what you need to do? You just need to store the user information. For example, right, you are developing one employee portal. Whoever the right, employees join your application right, company, their details you need to store. So there is no password. Then what?
Okay.
Right? So basically, nullable means it is null. So it is an optional field. If required, you can store the data. If not required, you can ignore the data. And again, our application layer is going to be there where we can define the DTOs or models, where we'll ensure that column value is going to be there. Clear?
Okay.
Right. So you can see that only not. Apart from this ID, right, primary key column, you can see rest of all columns are nullable type. So this lockout, this is not null. This is going to be some integer values. The default is going to be 0. So whenever the integer column, so that is going to be right 0 the default value. Otherwise for string it is nullable. So okay. So we have discussed this user roles table. Is that clear?
Yes.
Right. ASP.NET user login table. So basically this is for the external login. So whenever you implement some external authentication, so Google authentication, Microsoft authentication, Facebook authentication. So in that case, the authentication information it is going to store in this table. So one user can have multiple authentication, multiple social account. So for example, in that case, right? So whenever I'm going to use some Google authentication, Google is going to provide me some basic information like the user email ID name. So this basic information are going to be provided by Google to us along with a unique identifier. So that user basic information will store 100% in the user's table, and that Google related information will store inside this table. So login provider it is going to be Google, and for a particular user it will provide us with a unique key, and this unique key is going to be unique for Google. Similarly, for Facebook, we will also get a unique key for a particular user. And what is the corresponding user ID? That data what we stored in the users table, that ID will store here. Who is the provider? Google, Facebook, Microsoft, whatever that information will store here. What is the provider key? Means the unique identifier which is provided to us from the external authentication. That key we will store here, and this is the optional display name. For example, instead of showing google.com, facebook.com, what user, right, what display name you want to show in the UI? So that what, for example, I want to show this, right, Google, Facebook, that display name, this is optional. That is what it is going to store inside this, right, column. This table is clear. And guys, remember, for each external authentication, one internal user is going to be created. One internal user is going to be created. What is the username, email ID? Those information from where we will get? We will get from Google. Whatever the external authentication we have implemented, they are going to provide those basic information. Are they going to share the password? Guys, If I'm going to use
No.
Google, Facebook, are they going to give their password whatever you stored? No, the password is not there. So the password is not there. So I can create the user, but without password. That is the reason why the password field is going to be now. Clear? Now it is clear.
Yes, yes.
Right. So now, so once this user login is done, next user ASP.NET user token stable. So basically, what exactly it means? Now it means sometimes we need to generate some token. So what type of a token? We need to generate some password reset token, forgot password token, email confirmation token, two-factor authentication token. So for that purpose, whatever the token we are going to generate, that token information we are, if you want, right? It is not mandatory, but if you want, you can store here. Storing the token data inside a table is not the ideal scenario. What is the best way that is going to be implemented by identity? But if you want, you can store those information inside this table for whichever user ID, what type of a token you generated. I mean the login provide this is internal or external. And then what is the token name for example, reset password, email confirmation, and what is the corresponding value that what you need to store here. This is not mandatory to store the data inside this table. If you want, you can store. If you don't want, don't store. That what you can handle right within the application itself also. Then this is my user claims table. So whatever the claims associated for user, that is what I'm going to store. What is the identity? This is going to be the identity key. Whatever the user ID, claim type and a claim value. So here birth date is the claim, whatever the corresponding value. Email is the claim, what is the corresponding value. So like this, you can store the data in the form of a key value pair for each user. Similarly, here the claim is associated with the user, and here the claim is associated with the role. And this role which we assign to whichever user, those user can also access these corresponding claims. Clear? Clear or not?
Sir, one doubt.
Okay, continue.
If we want to add extra values, like we want to store like date of birth, something, like how can we extend?
See, that is not extended. Na. So in that case, these are not the columns in the database. So you have to remember. Say if I'm using that date of birth is a column is different, and here it is a value. For example, right, you develop one application, right? You develop one application. So while right, you are storing the application, you are taking the right. What I can say that you are asking the user, hey user, can you please enter your date of birth? So date of birth is entered. So in that case, that claim is going to be date of worth, and that value is going to be whatever the value. So for example, there are different types of user, so the access level. So access level you have claimed that value is going to be gold, silver, right, and whatever. Suppose you are going to have one claim called the ADT user, right, what I can say, right, access level or some type is right access level. You are having the value edit user, delete user. So basically, these are not columns. These are some additional value. And whatever the for example, for a particular user, right? Let assume for a particular user, I add two claims. That claim is going to be view report edit user. But I have not provided the information, but I have not added the claim, add user and a delete user. So based on this claim, right, whenever they are going to access some endpoint, we can say for this particular the delete endpoint, the user must have this claim. And that claim information we can write pick from here. If this is not clear at the moment, don't worry. That claim-based authentication, that role-based authentication, everything we are going to discuss in detail. But here for now, just remember, these claims are nothing but some additional information about the user. So additional information means the information which we are not storing as column in the table. For example, what are the functionality, whether the user can edit, whether the user can delete, whether the user can view the report. So these are the some additional information, and this information we are not storing anywhere in the database, right, related to the table. So for this additional information, if some functionality is going to define based on this additional information, then those additional information we need to store in the right claims table. And there is what is the claim and what is the value, and you need to assign these claims to user or role. Clear? Clear, guys?
Yes.
Sir, as the schema for the claim and for the role one, both are same. So what is
Sorry.
so, so as we can see, ASP net role claims and ASP net or the upper one, the claims table has the
Schema
same
is not
schema.
same. No, not same schema. Here it is the user ID. Here it is role ID. The column name is different. You can see user ID is here, role ID is here. User ID is different, role ID is different. Clear? So if I'm assigning claims to user ID, then for each user I have to add so many claims. And if I'm assigning claims to role, then few entries are going to be there. Why? Because in my application, there might be 5 to 10 roles, but there are might be 5 to 10 millions of a user. And per user, if I'm going to add claims, then you can imagine how big this table is going to be. But at the same time, we can drastically reduce if I'm assigning these claims to role and role to user. Clear? So these are not same. Here it is role ID, here it is user ID. Clear? Right now what I need to do is right tomorrow we are going to start the implementation part. So but before that, what I need to do, I need to make my database ready. So database ready means I don't generally prefer to use this default boring naming conventions, which is very boring. And what I need to do, I need to customize. So whenever you want to develop any robust user management system, basic identity functionalities are going to be provided by ASP.NET Core Identity. But this functionality might not fulfill all the business requirements. For example, if you look at the user table, so you can see it is only containing username, email, password, phone number. If I want to store the first name, last name, if I want to store the date of birth, whether the user is active, when the user is created, when the user is right, updated, what is the last login time. So if this information I need, does this information available inside this table? Yes or no?
No,
No.
No.
Not. Right now, if you look at this ASP.NET roles table, so ID name is there. But if I want to provide some additional information like description, role description, I need to provide some additional description like is active, whether this role active or not. So for that purpose, what I need to do? I need to customize this ASP.NET roles and ASP.NET users table or not? Yes or no?
Yep.
Yes.
Right? And secondly, most of the time you can see that address is going to be a different table. So for example, I want to manage either one-to-many relationship or one-to-one relationship between user and address. For address related things, is there any table provided to us by identity framework? No. So basically what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do few things. First of all, I want to customize the existing identity role and identity user table with additional properties. Second thing, I am going to create one address table having a relationship with users table, one to one or one to many, whatever a relationship you decide, that will I'm going to implement. Third thing, I don't want to go with this default naming convention. I want to customize this table name. Fourth thing, I want to provide some initial dummy role, right, for the testing purpose. These four things I want to do now. Clear? What are the things I'm going to do is clear or not?
yeah.
Right. So let us proceed and do this thing step by step.
No,
So first
I
of
have
all,
one question.
yes,
So apart from identity user and identity role, it can be extended. The rest of the tables also we can extend, like claims.
yes, all the tables you can extend. So the way I'm extending two tables, in the same way, other tables you can also extend, but not required. So for example, right, what you will write, for example, ASP.NET roles table. So what you will extend here?
Mhm.
This is claim table. Does it require any additional column? Not required.
Mhm. So if someone asks
Right?
us in the interview, then we can reply, no, no, we can extend. We can.
100%. So for that purpose, if I'm extending two tables, so why not all? Every table you can
Mhm.
extend,
Mhm.
right? So now, but ideally, in most of the time, we are only happy with this ASP.NET users table and this roles table. But you can extend other tables. So how you will extend? That is what we are going to discuss. So currently, you can see, right? Currently, if you see that DB context, I'm not specifying anything. I'm only using this identity DB context. And in this case, you can see identity user and identity role. So I'm removing this one. This is not going to be required by our system because we want to fully identity feature all the functionality we are going to define. So first of all, what I need to do, so if you want to extend means you need to create a custom class inheriting from the built-in identity user class. So let me go with this application user class. This application user class is going to be inherited from the identity user class. So whatever the custom properties is required, that what you can see, right? So here you can see I'm adding my first name property, last name property. So let's make this last name null, nullable type last name. So let's make this as nullable type. So this is my date of birth, nullable type, last login, nullable type. And in this case, each active is also going to be there. This audit column I have also provided when it is created and when it is modified. And there is a relationship one address. So if you want to implement a one-to-one between application user and address, this is going to be address. If you want to implement one-to-many, then this will become list of address. So you guys tell me, should we go with one-to-one or one-to-many?
One-to-many.
One-to-many.
Okay, then in that case, what I need to do, we just need to implement this list of address, and this is going to be addresses. Clear?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
Yes.
So one user can have right 0, 1 or n number of addresses. So this is my application user. So whatever the changes I have done, let me also put it here so that you should not have any confusion. The second right class, what I'm going to extend is the identity role. So create a class file. So this class file is going to have application role entity. So let me go ahead and create this one. So in this case, what I'm doing here, and let me do this thing one to many. Guys, please mute. Okay, so this is going to my application user. Guys, are you getting bored?
No.
Okay, so another few minutes it will take, and then we'll complete the session. So this is going to my application role. So here you can see I'm adding one optional description column is active, created on, and modified on. And here you can see, right, as I mentioned, by default, the primary key column is going to be string. If you want, you can decide whichever type you want to use. But what is important role? What is the key functionality? Whatever type you decide, that will be applicable for all the entities. For example, I cannot decide GUID here and integer here. That is not possible. If you either you go with all the primary key columns as integer or all the primary key columns as a GUID. So you cannot go with the one GUID, another int, another string. That is not possible. So whatever is going to be the type, that type is common for all the entities. So in this case, I'm not going with the default string. So I want to make sure the primary column is going to be of type GUID. GUID means global unique identifier. So in it, so if you want, you can also provide integer. That is also possible. Clear?
Pranay, I have a question.
Yes.
So now we need to create the application user as a table, right?
So what is the table? How to create the table? That is what I'm going to discuss. So don't think too. What is I'm saying? What is the why? What is the use of this property? Right? In this data type is that clear?
Yeah.
Sir, Pranay sir.
Yes.
Sir, I had a doubt. Sir, usually whenever we are working on corporate projects, so the primary key type is taken as GUID, string, or int. I'm not. I wanted to ask that.
Primary key claim. See, basically in a distributed environment, it is
Mm-hmm.
better to use GUID. GUID will give you that scope, that identity means it is going to be unique. So in case of integer, you might not get that uniqueness. Right? Integer means every table they are going to start from 1 to 3 like this. With GUID, that primary key column is going to be unique across the database and across the server. There is no key you will find as a duplicate. right? Right, most of the time, some companies they are preferring to use GUID. Some companies they prefer that performance is the key factor. They are going with the INT. So it is up to them only, right? If your database is very robust, you want to make sure, and you don't want to compromise the one millisecond time, right, related to performance, you can go with integer. Otherwise, you can go with the GUID. These are the two options. That is what is used in the industry. Clear?
Yes, GUID and the second one for the robustness?
Integer, INT.
Integer.
Yes, because
Okay.
integer size is going to be very less comparing to GUID. So here I'm using GUID and here also I'm specifying GUID. Important thing, whatever the type you decide, that needs to be same across all the entities. If I specify GUID here means the data type is 100% going to be GUID for all the columns. Clear? All the primary key columns. Now, next I need to create one address entity, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another entity within the models folder. So this is going to be my address entity. Within the address entity, whatever the columns you want to store, ID, and in this case, a user ID is going to be foreign key, and that user ID is pointing to the right. What I can say, application user table ID column. That ID column is not available here. That ID column is available within the identity user table. That ID column, user ID column, it is pointing to, right? And then this is going to be my foreign key for this one, right? Then I'm storing the city, state, postal code, country is active when it is created and when it is modified. So these are the information that what I'm storing related to address. Clear? So this is going to be my foreign key, and that foreign key will be pointing to my application user primary key column. Clear, guys? And in this case, that primary key column not exist inside this application user. It is exist in the identity user. So in the identity user, you will see that primary key column. Clear? Clear?
Yeah, clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
And now these are the three changes that are what I have to do here. Now in the identity DB context class, what I need to do, I need to do few things. First of all, I need to define the relationship between application user and the address. Second thing, what I can say, right? The second thing what I need to do is so that relationship automatically it is going to be one to many. You don't need to define. So in this case, see, first of all, in previous case, it is inherited from identity DB context. And now you can see as we have modified the application user and the application role. So whatever the custom class that what we need to pass. So application user, application role. Then if you are having some other custom classes, right? Application user role, application token, whatever name you provided, those list you need to pass here. And finally, the last parameter is nothing but your data type of the primary key. And in this case, this is GUID. Clear?
Yes, yes, sir.
So the number of classes you extend, you need to pass them one by one, and finally you need to pass the data type. Then here you can see now I'm not going with the default naming convention. So what I'm doing here, please observe, I'm specifying the default table name for this application user is going to be users. For default table name, this application role, it is going to be roles. And for this application user and application role, we have already specified the primary key column. So that is the reason why you can see I'm not specifying anything else. But in this case, you can see whenever I'm specifying user role claim, identity user login, right, role claim, all these things, that primary key column I have specified is going to be GUID, and whatever the corresponding table name, that what I need to specify. So now, instead of creating this ASP.NET user claims and all this thing, that ASP.NET is no longer available. This is going to be my table name. And then what I'm doing here, please observe, I have created 4 GUID, and then I'm creating my application role. And this GUID is going to my ID, primary key column. And I'm creating few role, admin, user, manager, and guest. And whatever the normalized name I have stored, whatever the description I have stored, whether he is active, and some hard-coded fixed value I have provided for the created on and modified on. And in this case, I have to add one custom property for the addresses, and rest of all properties for this application user, all these things are going to be managed by the identity DB context. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Clear or okay?
Yes.
Now what I need to do the last thing we need to configure the program class, right? So now again already we have configured some few changes we need to do. What changes we need to do? Now here we need to specify application user and application role instead of using identity user and identity role. Why? Because we have changed and this is the reason why they make this method generic. So whichever type that type you need to pass here. Here it is the application user and application role. Rest of the things are going to be same. Clear? So with these changes right now, we have already generated this migration file version 1. Now let us proceed and generate the migration file version 2. Right. So with this, so we are going to work with the existing. So in this case, MIG2. So whatever the changes we have done, accordingly it is going to generate and update the schema. So next, I need to update this database.
Sir, what if I updated some another table? Then where should I add that in that service?
So what add means I'm not getting.
How should I add that updated another third class in the service? Like we have added that application user and application role.
Right. What I have told you. So here you just need to pass a command, provide the table name, class name. That's it.
Inside that service or on while adding that
Both.
service in program.cs or
Here,
only for do
here you need to provide. So they have provided multiple version, T role, T user.
okay.
Similarly, right, another service is there, right, where they have provide the third parameter like this.
Okay.
Okay. So now let me refresh this one and see whether these changes are reflected in the database or not. So now if you see, this is my addresses table. And in the addresses table, you can see ID, user ID, street, all these things are going to be there. And this is my right. You can see the table names are changed. And this is my users table. And the users table, you can see that first name, last name, date of birth, last login is active, created on, modified on. So all the custom columns along with the existing columns, they are going to be there. So this is how you can change or you can customize your ASP.NET Core identity. Clear, guys? So this is the introduction session. So from tomorrow, we are going to discuss the implementation. So tomorrow, basically, I'm going to discuss how to implement the registered functionality, login functionality, logout functionality, redirect, return to you, redirect to return URL functionality. So all these things we are going to discuss in tomorrow's session.
Sir,
So,
I have one question.
sorry?
One question I have.
Yes, please.
So if you can you show the database again?
Sorry?
Can you show the database SQL Server? Okay, so hold on. In the user table, we just rename the table name and the rest of the fields are still the same. Correct?
No.
We haven't added that.
See, not only the user table name, but also you have added few additional properties, na? First name, last name, date of birth, last line. Is this available earlier?
No. It was not. Okay, the application user, can you scroll up the application user table we have added that is not there in the database.
Brother, where you are? So what is the table name we
Okay.
provided? In this
So
case,
what
for this user, whatever the table name we specify, that is going to be the table name. If you do not specify this
okay.
thing, then the default is going to be ASP.NET users.
Okay.
So that is what, right? We are updating the renaming the table name. Clear?
Clear.
Right. So this is all about today's session. Anyone having any question, they can ask me now.
Yes, I do have one question. Suppose if I don't want to change these 5 tables names, if I commented these 5 tables name, will it work?
100% it will work. Why not work? So in this case, these two table names are going to be this one. The
Okay,
rest of all
then
table, it is going to
okay,
be
then
whatever the default name that will come into the picture.
okay, then how they gonna manage the identification? Because we have changed the identity column as a GUID. Before it was by
In that
default
case,
it's string.
see, in that case, we are already telling to the framework that the primary key column is going to be GUID here,
Okay, I got it.
right? That is what we have already told.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Anyone else having any question, guys? So from tomorrow, we are not only going to implement the backend part, but the front end, while the user interface is also going to be there. So how to create a register a new user, how to implement the login logout functionality. So how the user can do all these things, right? Step by step, we are going to discuss all these things. Anyone having any more question, guys?
No.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.